Hello and welcome back to Wrongmar. In today's science lesson, we're taking one last look at life under the sea. Our world for today is to investigate how animals have adapted to life under the sea. I decided to upgrade to a bigger boat for this lesson. Some of the animals we're going to meet later on are terrifying, and I feel a lot safer on this one. Life has existed on this planet for an awful long time. The organisms that live on the Earth now have had a long time to get used to their surroundings. This is called adaptation. For example, an elephant is well adapted to the habitat that it lives in. Its trunk allows it to eat huge amounts of vegetation with ease. Likewise, these antelope have adapted to their environment. They developed long, powerful legs to help them run away from their predators. Every living organism has developed physical features to help it survive and thrive in its habitat. Under the sea is no different, and as we know from the last lesson, the habitats under the water are as varied as the ones on land. So let's take a visit to a few of these habitats. Let's meet a few of the creatures that live there, and see how they have adapted to survive in their environment. Let's first head to the open sea. Let's go to the ocean. You see now why I needed that bigger boat? This is a great white shark. Take a look at this fella and see if you can notice anything about him that helps him survive in the ocean. Pause the video and try write down a feature. Great white sharks are one of the most perfect predators on Earth. They have loads of features that help them survive out in the ocean. One is their torpedo-shaped body. The shape of their body helps them swim at incredible speeds. Another is their confusing colouring. If you're prey underneath the shark and you're looking up, the light and the colour of the shark can make it very difficult to spot them, kind of like a camouflage. Another feature they have is rows and rows of replaceable teeth. Because of the nature of the way the shark eats, it loses a lot of teeth, so sharks adapted by growing extra sets of teeth. And the last feature we'll talk about is a shark's incredible sense of smell. If a shark can't eat, it won't survive. So they've developed an incredible nose that can smell a drop of blood in the ocean from nearly 500 meters away. Let's move to a slightly safer underwater habitat. The coral reef, home of all sorts of weird and wonderful creatures. This guy here is a lionfish. Although you might not know much about lionfish already, can you see any ways that they have adapted to survive in their habitat from the picture? Pause the video and see if you can write down any features. Well, straight away you probably notice the colour of the lionfish is quite unusual. This colouring helps it camouflage in amongst the coral reef. You also might be wondering what those frilly bits are. Well, these are venomous spines used for defence. You won't survive very long if you keep getting eaten. And the final feature that you can't actually see here is that usually lionfish are nocturnal hunters. They only come out eating at night time when their predators are asleep. Next up are the Everglades, a swampy river area in America. Here we're going to meet the alligator. Take a look at this picture and see if you can find some features that show the alligator has adapted to survive. Pause the video and give it a try. Well, this strange looking creature has got a lot of physical features that help it survive. First off is its extremely tough skin. You might notice the bumps on his back. Alligators need tough skin because of the place they live. They have to be able to push through the thick vegetation in the Everglades. Crocodiles also have extremely powerful short legs that allow them to swim easily through the water. You might notice also the colour again of the alligator is very dark and very similar to the water that they live in. This makes them difficult to see. And finally, if you've ever seen a picture of an alligator, You usually see their eyes just above the water. You might have noticed that their eyes and their nose are very high up. This lets them hide most of their body under the water, while still being able to breed and look out for their next meal. Now, I promised you unusual creatures, and the next two most certainly are. For our first one, let's head to the Arctic, the freezing cold water. This here is a narwhal. Yes, they are real creatures. Take a look at the video and see how a narwhal has adapted to survive in the cold Arctic conditions. Pause the video, give it a try. Well, a narwhal has to survive in some of the harshest water conditions in the world. Because it's so cold, the narwhal has developed a really thick, blubbery skin that kind of works as like a really warm jacket. He also has flippers that help him swim around, a blowhole on the top of his head to help him breathe easily when he comes up for air, and this tusk. Now, for a long time, scientists had absolutely no idea why they had this tusk. Some people thought maybe it was for fishing, or maybe it was for fighting off others. But realistically, it's probably none of these things. Most scientists think now that the tusk is simply decoration, just like a peacock's feathery tail. And without further ado, to our last habitat, the deep ocean. Remember, this habitat gets very little light, so the creatures we find down here are very, very different from anywhere else. This is an anglerfish. If you've seen Finding Nemo, you might recognize this guy. This very unattractive fellow is a real fish that lives in some of the darkest, deepest parts of the ocean. Pause the video and see if you can find one or two features that help him survive there. Well, one thing that's very distinctive about an anglerfish is this glowing spine on top of his head. The anglerfish uses this little light to lure prey towards his mouth. Then he snaps them up and eats them. You might have noticed that his mouth is extremely wide. You might have noticed also his very sharp and unusual looking teeth. Sometimes an anglerfish's mouth is so big and his teeth are so numerous that they can't actually close their mouth ever. The reason for this is the way that they eat. They eat by swallowing their prey whole. To help with this, they have a body that can expand to nearly twice its size. Also, their skin is very dark colour so that they blend in with the deep, dark habitat. So there you have it. All sorts of strange and wonderful creatures living underneath the ocean. I don't know if this has helped you be more curious about the ocean, or whether it's just terrified you completely that you never want to go to the beach again. Regardless, you can see that the place an animal lives has a big, big effect on how it turns out. The same thing can be said for humans, really. So our Walt for today was to investigate how animals have adapted to life under the sea. When you're ready, you can try the practice activities down below. That's all we have time for this week. Until next time, take care.